Here we go. All right. A happy Tuesday to everyone. Thanks for joining. Thanks for being here. Thanks for being part of this. This is so special, really. All right. Parshas Noach. Yeah. Parshas Noach. Oh, this is up there as the most famous Bible stories. Absolutely. I actually saw, I don't even remember where it is though, but I saw online that someplace random decided to make a replica of the Ark of the Teva. And I don't know if it's to size or what they consulted, but I will say that if you Google it and you see that picture, it has a wow factor to it. So worth seeing, just to give you a sense of size when we talk and when we're imagining a boat. This isn't your little rowboat. This isn't your little Shelby Farms paddle boat. Okay, this is a big deal. Okay, so let's just get back in touch with the story, the Parsha of Noach. We have a generation and things are going seriously wrong. There's tremendous corruption in a very, very deep way. And we have a man, Noach. And the pasuk tells us that Noach is motzeh chen b'nei Hashem. He found favor in God's eyes. Noach was ish tomim haya b'dayrasav. Ish tzaddik tomim haya b'dayrasav. He was a tzaddik in his generation. We had Noach, who was doing amazing for the time, and the time was horrific, obviously, in terms of the generation. And famously, Hashem said, enough is enough. It's time for a flood. We're restarting this project, Project Earth. You know, the beta did not go well. It's time to reboot and get Earth 2.0. And Noach get onto the Teva. Teva is the boat, the ark, and we'll restart. And this is the story we have in front of us. And of course, the Nesiv Shalom, along with everyone else, says, this is not just a story for a storybook. This is not just a story to tell us something nice historically. There's something here that's a message to every one of us. What is this story of the Mabul, the generation, the Noach, the one righteous man getting on the boat, surviving the flood? What is that telling every one of us? And for us sitting here in Memphis or wherever you are in 2020, what's that telling us today? That's the question we always want to know. The Nesiv Shalom tells us, and what we're going to discuss today is sort of collected thoughts from a few different pieces of the Nesiv Shalom on this week's Parsha. And I felt that a lot of the thoughts and points he made complemented each other, and we'll try and bring it all together in what I believe is a powerful, relevant message for us. Maybe one we've mentioned before, but one that we can't mention enough. Says the Nesiv Shalom, what is the Mabul? There's a story about a flood, a deluge, an amount of water that comes that's unheard of. I mean, this wasn't like get out your umbrella. This was, you're toast. I think I once saw a comic. There was a comic where you saw two dinosaurs on the top of a mountain, and the water was all the way up to the top of the mountain. And there they were on the tippy top, and they're looking out at the ark, the boat floating away. And one turns to the other and goes, "Was that today?" So, did we miss our boat? And we've never heard of dinosaurs since, right? So that was the comic. But I think the point is that this is a flood above and beyond. And the question is, obviously, that's not going to take place in our life. In fact, Hashem even promises he's not doing that again. So what are we to take from that? And then the Nesiv Shalom says, well, Hebrew is a language that communicates so much in every word. What is the word Mabul? We always translate it as flood, but what does it actually mean? And the Nesiv Shalom tells us from Rashi that the root of the word Mabul is the word bilbul, which means confusion. Once you translate it like that, that's a lot closer to home than a flood, isn't it? Bilbul means confusion. That the Mabul in that water that poured down, obviously it confused, it confounded, it mixed up the whole world as it destroyed it, no question. But for us, as we're reading this, when we read about a Mabul, a deluge, something pouring down that could destroy our lives, we are reading about, says the Nesiv Shalom, something called bilbul, confusion. Where does confusion come from? Oh, there's something we want to talk about today. But I want to start because, you say, we're confused. There's confusion. It's wreaking havoc on our lives. And, I feel like so many times you're like, wait, but I'm not confused. I'm totally not confused. What's he talking about? I know what I'm doing. I got my whole daily planner worked out. I got my exercise, my routine. I got the things I do, the people I'm going to meet, the people I'm going to call. I know the store I'm going to, the new couch I'm ordering. I got it all worked out. I'm not confused at all. So what is this rabbi talking about? So I was thinking about that question and it reminded me of a joke, okay? This joke is a what we like to call a Jewish classic, okay? This is, you want to be Jewish, there's a few jokes you have to know. This is probably up there on the list. Jokes you need to know if you're a Jew. Like I had a friend in Baltimore who was a Baal Tshuva, and he told me he celebrated a very special day. What was the day? He came to tell me about it. It was the day he ordered, that yellow and red little tyke car that every Jewish home has sitting in their front yard, little kids ride in it. The little tykes, red and yellow. I mean, you can't miss it. It's like a classic. He said, I finally got that car. Now I'm really Orthodox. So there are many aspects to being Orthodox, and there's the Torah, but then there's certain other side things. The little tykes, red and yellow car, and some jokes you got to know. This joke is a Jewish classic. Okay, so this is what it reminded me of. And the background to the jokes so that I'm not the only guy laughing at the end. Okay, in Shul, when they take out the Torah on Shabbos, there are 7 aliyahs. Those are aliyahs is when you call somebody up, they make a bracha, they just make a blessing on the Torah, and then they go back to their seat. And then at the end you have Hagbah. Hagbah is where the guy, Mr. Muscleman, picks up the Torah, swings it around so everyone could see, and then they roll up the Torah and put it away. Okay, so that's called the aliyahs. You can get an aliyah at Shul, you could get Hagbah, different parts of the process. Okay. So there's the joke. A guy shows up to Shul and they say, oh, very nice, Moshe, welcome. We see you're here. We'd love to give you Hagbah. So he gets up there and he's like, somewhat of a skinnier guy. And he goes up and he tries to pick up the Torah, and it ends up being, it's one of those old Torahs, a little bit heavier. And he picks it up and it's wobbling, and everyone, the whole gasp in unison of the crowd, everyone's frozen, right? Don't drop it up. Oh, and he stumbles to the seat and they roll it and he's red. Oh, he's purple. He's so embarrassed that he couldn't do the Hagbah. And afterwards, he just marches right out of Shul and he thinks to himself, oh boy, that was humiliating. Never again. Never again. He goes straight to the gym and he starts pumping iron. Okay. And he's chugging protein shakes and he is working out every day. And after a year, Moshe is not no skinny guy anymore. He's Mr. Hulk. He's built like an ox. And he storms into Shul and he's like, okay, now we're going to clean the slate. We're going to restore my dignity in the Shul. And sure enough, he hears his name being called. He marches right up there. He grabs the Torah. He rolls it out 8 columns, picks it up. He swings it around the whole Shul like this, like nobody's business. And he sits down and he's rolling it up and he feels like king of the world. And he turns to the Gabbai and he goes, not bad, eh? And the Gabbai says, not bad at all, but we called you up to get an aliyah. We didn't call you for Hagbah. And that's a classic Jewish joke, right? Not bad, but we gave you shlishi. We didn't give you Hagbah. All right? So why that joke come to mind? Because that guy, he wasn't confused at all. He came in with a mission. And he went to do it. And he was confident. And he went, and that wasn't what he was supposed to do. So when we say confusion, it doesn't always mean we feel confused. Sometimes we feel like we're marching exactly the direction we want to march in. But maybe we're trying to do Hagbah when we're supposed to do Galila, or we're supposed to get Shlishi or an Aliyah. So confusion and confidence, they can go hand in hand, and in fact, they often do. Confidence is one of the wonderful things that mankind seems to have an overabundance of. Tremendous, no shortage of confidence. Wisdom you can't find, but confidence there's tons of. Can't find anyone who knows what they're talking about, but confident people we have no shortage of. So the point is, the mabul is bilbul, confusion. And if we're saying, but I don't feel confused, let's just be clear, that's not a proof that we're not confused. We may be doing Hagbah when we're not supposed to. So let's talk about confusion. And I want to harp on a duality that of confusion that I think is wreaking havoc, I'll be honest, in our lives often. My grandfather used to talk about this all the time, and I'll talk about it from two perspectives. I want to talk about it from a somewhat spiritual perspective and the realm of spirituality and spiritual pursuits and the realm of physical pursuits. Confusion. Where did things go wrong in the generation of the flood? Where did things go so wrong? Where did they lose their way? Where did they get so confused? What was the mabul, the confusion of that generation that should be relevant to us? And I want to tell you a pasuk that the Nesiv Shalom points us to. And this pasuk has, I believe, should have dual meaning to us. Says the pasuk, Vayar b'nei ha'elokim, the rulers of that time, they saw as benois ha'adam, they saw the women, ki toivos heina, they saw that they were beautiful. Vayikchu lahem noshim mikol asher b'charu, and they started taking wives from any person, whether they were married or not. They didn't care. The rulers started usurping and taking advantage of women however and wherever they wanted. And it all comes to the fact that vayiru b'nei halekim es b'nei adam. Where did it start with? Everything went totally to pieces. All of a sudden, nobody's being moral. Everything's falling apart. And then Nesiv Shalom says, but where did it start from? The pasuk tells us, Vayiru, they were looking around. They were looking at everybody. And when they started looking at everybody, then all of a sudden that ended up leading to the fact that they wanted, they had desire, and things spiraled out of control. And I want to talk about this from two perspectives. What the Nesiv Shalom is telling us is that the beginning of what made everything crumble was a Vayiru b'nei ha'elokim es b'nei adam. The leaders were looking around. What's that telling us? Two things. Where do we start to lose our direction? Where do we start to lose our clarity? When we start to let our eyes roam. And I want to start by saying, yes, of course, this means desire, our wants, like the Nesiv Shalom is pointing out. We'll start with that. It's true. They began to roam and wander and see, look what they have, look what they have. And then the appetite, all of a sudden, nothing was good enough. What they had wasn't good enough. They created a monster inside of themselves. But how? When did they become so hungry? Vayiru, when they couldn't keep their eyes on their own life. That's what created something that spiraled out of control. And that's true. It's true. There's a first level of bilbul that we need to relate to. And that's the bilbul of American culture. It's the bilbul of every single minute somebody dangles a different carrot in front of you. You can't be happy where you are because, boom, There's another thing. And they just launched the Apple event, and they launched the new iPhone 12 and the 12 Pro and the 12 Pro Mini. And and I'm just wondering, what wasn't our phone doing? What wasn't it doing that they needed to launch an entirely new line of phones? And you know what? I actually get the news sent. I get these little clips of the news. And so part of the news, this was newsworthy. We had to know that Apple launched a new phone. There's a presidential race going on, and also there's a new iPhone. These are on the same tier. Okay, so I get the ad where it shows me the new phone, and I'm looking at it, I'm like, but what does it do? I don't even see anything. They don't even care to tell you anymore. They know that the second we see it, we're going to go running, and we're going to throw what we have away, and we're going to need to go buy their next thing. They know it. They know that they have us on a leash. And I'm embarrassed. I'm sorry. So let's just talk about Bilbil on the most simplistic level. Vayiru, when our eyes start roaming, I signed up for this. Somebody said, you could sign up for this deals on WhatsApp. They'll tell you every time there's like a really good deal. I'm like, hey, I like a good deal, right? Who doesn't like a good deal? So I sign up. The next thing I know, it's like bling, bling, bling. And I'm just keep looking at it, and I'm like, 1 second. I don't need a deal. I wasn't looking for anything. This is very simple realization. I don't need your deal because I wasn't looking to buy anything. Why do I need to see your deal so that then I want it, so that now I'm shopping? I was perfectly happy before you sent me the WhatsApp. This is so simple. We're talking simple, but we got to appreciate this, that the eyes, the way we look and the way we roam and how much we decide to take in as opposed to looking right here at our lives creates this beast that can't be satisfied. It creates the bilbil, the confusion, that instead of feeling tranquil and absorbing the beauty of what we have and appreciating it and feeling like things are okay and being able to focus on the things that matter, all of a sudden we're in a tizzy, bilbil. We're running. Why? Because the carrot is still a few feet away. We keep on going. We can't stop. This is bilbil. This is a tremendous bilbil, a confusion that takes hold of our lives. We start to chase. We start to run after one thing and the next. And this is what he says, Chazal say, the eyes see and then the hearts want. The heart has only the ability to want after the eyes see. My Rosh Hashiva in high school said he remembered an ad that made him recoil in the way it struck home exactly the problem. Okay, and I'm not trying to say here be asceticism and let's cut ourselves off from the world. I'm just saying this is an important point to know. What is dragging us around? Okay, and this is the minor point of the two we'll talk about. The next one will be even more important. And look how much this takes hold of us. And this is what he said the ad said. He said he saw the ad, and the ad said, a luxury, after they showed you how cool their product was, they said, a luxury that will soon become a necessity. And he just froze and he went, are you saying I'm crippling myself? Is that what you just said to me? To my face. That right now I see it as a luxury, but I will be crippled and it will become a necessity. Now you said that to convince me, but he, being a greater person than that, realized what was really being said. A luxury becomes a necessity quicker than we can imagine. We don't need to chase everything. We don't need to see every ad. We don't need to see the other person's house and their designer this and their car. We don't need it. I'm telling you, you don't need it. That's not where you're going to find happiness. Bilbil, you're getting confused. Every one of us is being pulled along. We're being schlepped by this leash. We don't need it. Vayiru, let's keep our eyes away. Let's keep our eyes on ourselves, on what we do have. Let's stop with the roaming, the looking, the next thing, the next thing. I want to bring in the spiritual
Happiness
elements.
is having what you want.
What was that?
Happiness is having what you have, not what you want.
Exactly. And what he's adding is that the want itself comes from us taking a certain first step, which is a certain way of looking at the world, where we're trying to see, where we're looking at everything and comparing, and that we can even curb the want. Because the less you look like that out at the world, looking to compare, looking to see what everyone else has, looking to see what's new, but you're rather reflecting on just what you have and what you enjoy, you know? You believe it or not, you should know, I once had this conversation with a high school kid, which you don't often have so much hope for. And we were talking, and the guy was like a big shopper. And I said to him, he kept asking me advice about spending the extra money. And I said, well, listen, I think we both know that you're going to spend the extra money, but in the end of the day, you're not going to really see the payoff in the product. And lo and behold, that's what I said to him. Lo and behold, sometime later, the person came to me and said, I want you to know, I had two things that I had the choice of buying. And I bought the lower grade model because I realized it wouldn't make a difference to get the more expensive one. And I say, if there's hope for a high school guy, there is hope for us, my friends, okay? We can grow. If he can grow, we can grow. If he could realize the fallacy, how we're getting scammed, we're getting scammed, okay? We have enough to be happy. We don't need the next thing. I don't mind you getting it. Let's make no mistake about it. I'm not trying to say that we should all go live in a cave. We can have what we have, but it's that appetite, the never ending, the want, what my grandfather called the tyranny of our needs. I need another thing. I need another thing. No, you don't. That's not what we do. That's the eyes. The eyes are too big. Like they say, the eyes are bigger than the plate. We're looking. By Yeru, they looked, and then they couldn't stop themselves from spiraling out of control. Enough with the looking. I want to point this out on a spiritual plane as well. And this may be even more important. This is the bilbil. That's the bilbil of the physical that schleps us around and we're just chasing it. But it's on the spiritual realm as well. That we don't know what we should do with our lives spiritually. Why? Because we have these same big eyes. The eyes that look at everyone else and says, well, they're doing that. They're doing better. They're doing firmer, or they're doing less. They have a lower standard, so maybe I should have a lower standard. Or they have too high a standard, so what I'm doing is unimportant. This way of constantly looking and comparing, it applies to the physical, but it certainly is stealing our lives with regard to the spiritual as well. The competition, the feeling that we're all in some sort of race with each other, that there's a big competition for who is the best Jew. And it's all about stacking up and keeping up with the Joneses in our spirituality. And this totally saps all the excitement and accomplishment from our lives. Like the Chidush Harim said, Cain got very jealous of Hevel. We know Cain brought a carbon, Hevel brought a carbon, and he got very jealous. The Chidush Harim said, Hashem asked him a question. He said to him, I want to ask you, are you upset because your sacrifice was not accepted? Or are you upset because Hevel's was? And the Chidush Harim says, everyone should ask themselves that question. Everyone should figure out what's the truth behind the way we try and be Jewish. Are we just trying to outdo the other person? I'm upset. I'm not happy with my role, with what my job is, because the other person has one that's better. Or I'm going to lower my standards because the other people have lower standards, so why can't I drop mine? What does the other person have to do with us? Why are we looking? Why are our eyes by Yeru? B'nei Elokim, the eyes were looking. That's where it all begins to become bilbil, confusion. There's no reason to look anywhere else. We're not in a race. This is not a competition. This derails us from what we're trying to do. We say, I can't keep Shabbos for 1 hour because I know there are people keeping it for the whole Shabbos. Who cares? Who cares? Where are you up to? You're up to keeping it for an hour? Then keep it for an hour. You'll say, well, I keep Shabbos to this standard. I keep modesty to this standard, but now I'm looking around and people aren't doing it. Maybe I should start cutting corners. Why? Why? It's not about being better than them. Cain, why are you upset? Because your sacrifice was not accepted or because Hevel's was? It's not about competing or outshining or keeping up with anybody. It's about being you. It's about looking at your life and finding the meaning and the purpose there. So I say, are we bilbo? Are we confused? You say, I'm not confused. I'm going at it with gusto. Yeah, but maybe we're showing up and we're trying to do Hagbah, and meanwhile we got an Aliyah. We are confused, I think, because I think we don't keep our eyes on ourselves. We keep our eyes all over, and we're absorbing all of this desire for more and more physicality. We need the next. We can't live and be satisfied and celebrate what we have, and spiritually even more so. We can't embrace and rejoice in and throw ourselves into with enthusiasm our lives, our job, our purpose, because we're looking, comparing. The competition is intense. This is the bilbo. We're trying to do Hagbah, but we're supposed to get an Aliyah. Stop trying to do Hagbah. Take the Aliyah. And the Nesiv Shalom tells us something incredible. That the truth is that this accomplishment, to get past this hurdle, and this is a hurdle, I get riled up and we yell about it, but we're yelling as friends because we're laughing while we cry. We know we're all stuck in this together. So we yell about it so that we could get out. We understand that we're stuck. We get stuck in this. But if we yell about it together, we're going to get out. So we're yelling about it. They've got us. They're schlepping us along. Let's reclaim our freedom, our joy, our happiness. This is robbing us. This bilbo, this confusion is robbing us of the life that we are meant to live, that Hashem is offering us. And we're losing our own life to the fact that we're looking around at everyone else. We're losing our life because we're trying to live other people's lives. And the Nesiv Shalom says, unbelievable. Listen to how this fits into the psukim. It's beautiful. That Noach exemplified the exact opposite of his generation. That Noach teaches us that this is not the way we want to live. Noach motza chen be'enei Hashem. Noach found favor be'enei Hashem, in the eyes of Hashem. Says the Nesiv Shalom. Noach motza chen. Noach, he did it right. Do you know how? Be'enei Hashem. He had the right type of eyes. He didn't look around to want everyone else's situation, to want the next thing that's advertised, to want that other individual's spirituality or that other person's physicality. He looked at Noach. Noach wanted to be Noach. Noach wanted to live Noach's life. And that's what made him be an incredible person, even in a generation that was so ruined and crooked, because they were looking, but he kept his eyes on himself. And listen to what he says. There's a pasuk, a well-known pasuk. The pasuk says, "V'noach ish tzadik tamim haya b'doreisav." Noach was a tzaddik in his generation. And Rashi tells us right there that had he been in Avram's time, then he wouldn't have been. Interesting. That Noach was a tzaddik in his generation, but had he been in Avram Avinu's generation, he wouldn't have been. And everyone asks, what a strange Rashi. What a strange point. What's the pasuk trying to tell you? Is this just a bad mouth Noach? Oh, he was good, but you know what? In a different time, it wouldn't have been impressive. Why on earth would we drag Noach in his reputation in the mud like that? Listen to what the Nesiv Shalom says, because this is so stunning. This is such a beautiful interpretation. And this tells us unbelievable. Listen to what he says. He says, that's not what it's trying to tell you. It's not trying to tell you that, oh, he's not so impressive. Had he been there, in Avram's time, he wouldn't have been a tzaddik. It's telling us that Noach's generation was a very different generation than Avram's. Avram's generation was open to learning and growing. And therefore, Avram was able to preach to them and to reach out with love. And Avram's generation wasn't so crooked. So Avram did not have to battle as much. However, in Noach's generation, the odds were against him. The world was so destroyed, as we see, Hashem had to erase them. They were not open to learning. And therefore, Noach had to take a totally different track. A track of seclusion, of non-teaching, keeping himself away from the locals, and working on his yira, his awe of God, to hold him together against the raging forces that were around him. And therefore, Noach was a tzaddik in his time. Had he been in Avram's time, that would not have been the calling. Listen to what he's saying. That would not have been the correct call in Avram's time. But in his time, it was. And that is exactly what the pasuk's trying to say. Let me read to you the golden words of the Nesiv Shalom. That it says, Ish Tzadik Tamam Haya B'Darasav. He was a perfect, righteous person in his generation. Shehigia, the Torah is trying to teach us. Shehigia L'Tachlis HaShlemas. He reached his ultimate potential. He did everything he was supposed to do. Shel Tafkid Doiraisav, of the purpose of his generation. Lilamdenu, to teach us. Shelechol Dor, in every generation. Yesh Avodah Miuchedes. There's a unique job, a unique mission, a unique service of Hashem. V'chein lechol Adam. Every person, every one of us here on Zoom, every one of us in the world, we have a unique purpose. According to the capabilities we have inside. And not just every person, but every one of us, each day of our lives, has a separate purpose. Every one of us needs to learn the lesson of Noach. Noach is a tzaddik, right? And he's thinking about the path that Avram would ultimately take, about teaching, about loving. Oh no, that sounds so nice, doesn't it? Doesn't that sound so much nicer than locking yourself away and working on awe and fear of God? But Noach recognizes something that every one of us has to take home with us. That's not my fight. That's not my purpose. This is not the time and place for that. That's bilbul. That's confusion. I'm being lured to go do somebody else's job. That's not my job. Ish Tzadik Tamam Haya B'Doiraisav. He was ultimately righteous because he stuck to his generation. He said, what's my purpose here? I don't care if in a different setting things would be better, different, more beautiful. We'd be able to do more. I don't care if a different person would be able to do more. What's Noach need to do? My eyes are on Noach. What does Noach need to do? Who does Noach need to be today with this generation, with the challenges facing me now? And his answer was, I need to protect myself. I need to stay holy and hold on against the forces against me. And that's what he said. Every one of us needs to learn from that. That kol echad tzarich livchanes tafkidai. Every one of us needs to ask ourselves, what is my purpose? Lefi hayoyim, according to the day. Lefi hamatzav sheba hu nimtza, and the situation and circumstance I find myself. That's the question. And even if when we look at somebody else and a different circumstance, that looks prettier. Certainly Avram's life looks prettier. He taught. He was beloved. He loved Hashem. That's what he worked with. It looks so pretty. Noach could have been lured to try that approach. But he managed to ask himself, what is Noach's mission? And if you think about it, had Noach not done that, had Noach fallen for the confusion of big eyes, competition, looking at everyone else, looking at what all the possibilities are, and not asking, but what is my part? What am I supposed to do? Then maybe he would have tried the approach of Avram, and he would have decided, no, that looks more grandiose. That looks like it'll be nicer, more warm and fuzzy, more enjoyable. And he would have gone and tried to do that. And you know what would have happened? He too would have fallen sway to the persuasions of his generation. And then we would have had nothing. But because he realized his purpose and he said, how do I act like a tzaddik in my generation as me? What does it mean for me to be Shuki the tzaddik, not somebody else the tzaddik? And Noach said, well, I am at risk. Can you imagine that? He admitted that he's at risk. But because he was open enough and honest enough and looking at himself enough to say, I am at risk of being swept away from this generation. I need to lock myself up and protect my holiness. That's my job. I could tell that's what Hashem wants. Because he did that, because he was matzachim be'enei Hashem, he had the right eyes to look at himself in his own life. He ends up saving the human race. And Hashem is able to restart the world with him. He becomes the father of future of mankind. And had he tried to do somebody else's job, had he tried to be Avram, he would have lost everything. What a powerful statement the Nesiv Shalom is telling us from Noach. The generation lost their sense of self and satisfaction because they started chasing what everyone else had, spiritually and physically. And Noach managed to hold on. Noach managed to look at himself. You know, so much of the reason we begin to pursue what everyone else has is because we're driven to find satisfaction. We're driven to find satisfaction. And the only way we seem to be able to measure that, something wrong with society, is by stacking ourselves up against others. And the Zohar tells us that you should know the Mabul that came and rained down at this time in history, it actually wasn't supposed to be a flood. This is incredible. Listen to what he says. You know what was supposed to happen? There was supposed to be a raining down of blessing. There was supposed to be a raining down of spiritual enlightenment and accomplishment. But because they were twisted and distorted, it came out as a flood that destroyed them. What is that telling us? Something very deep, I think. That Hashem sends into our lives so much blessing. It's meant to be waves of blessing and opportunity and capabilities to accomplish, to be shuki, to be filled with the wealth of our lives and the blessing Hashem gives us, to jump for joy at the spiritual achievements we have, whether that's to read one pasuk or to read the whole Chumash, whether that's to help one person by helping them physically or financially or on the phone, or whether we have to do it in our own home alone. There are accomplishments that could shake heaven and earth. Hashem is sending blessings. Like the Zohar said, it was supposed to be a deluge of blessing. But with their distortion, it destroyed them. With our distortion of perspective, heaven forbid, if we don't fix our eyes, then all that blessing gets twisted and retranslated. And instead, we see nothing. We see no blessing. We see no excitement. We see no happiness. We're just filled with the thirst for something over there. And we're swept away by the flood. But it's up to us. We don't have to be. We don't have to. We can begin to become the Noach, the one that looks at ourselves, the one that reflects inwardly at our blessing, our lives. I muted that chat where they were telling me the deals. I muted it. I said, I don't want to see anymore. And spiritually, I fortify myself all the time. And we all have to. We don't care about the other person. Of course, we love each other. We support each other. We all want each other and every one of us to be the best we could be. But I don't care what you're doing in the sense that that doesn't define what my life's about. That doesn't define what I'm shooting for and the greatness of my achievement and accomplishment. One does not impact the other. I have my life with Hashem. I am Noach, Matzachim be'inei Hashem. I got to ask what's for my generation, my day, my abilities, my limitations, what my strengths are, what is there for me to do today. And with that, then the world can be built out of us doing our purpose, even if it doesn't look as pretty as the other person. Oh, Rabbi Yaakov Galinsky said an unbelievable thing. We have a pasuk we say when people get married, there's Sheva brachas. And one of the things we say, one of the Sheva brachas is, Sameach tesamach ve'im ahuvim. Remember that one? God, bring joy to this couple. The same way you brought joy to Adam and Eve, to Adam and Chava in Gan Eden. So Rabbi Yaakov Galinsky asked, what was the joy that Adam and Eve, that Adam and Chava had in Gan Eden? What was the joy they had there? You know what he says it is? There was no one else around to look at. And that's what we're telling the bride and groom. You want joy? You want joy in your home, both physically, from your physical needs, and you want joy in your spirituality that you're about to forge together. Know that the joy comes when you act like Adam and Chava in Gan Eden, as if you're the only ones there. Don't look at anybody else's spouse. Don't look at other people's homes. Don't look at other people's income. Don't look at other people's spirituality. Look at each other. Live with each other. And live your life, your purpose. Let's not let the competition destroy our ability to live our lives that Hashem is trying to bless us with. The raining of blessing in our lives. It's getting stolen from us. It's time to look at ourselves and only ourselves. And there was a mabul, so what did Hashem say? Go into the teva. Go into the ark. Hashem said, there's bilbul. There's confusion. Everyone's looking at everyone else and wanting the other guy's thing. You need to make yourself an ark. Every one of us needs to build ourselves a teva, a place where we lock ourselves away. We say, we're not looking out there. That's not our world. We don't care. I'm in here, in my own teva. This is my world. This is what matters. This is the person I need to be. And this is what I will celebrate. I'm in my own bubble. I interact with everyone. I celebrate. In fact, the more you're able to be in your own bubble and celebrate your life is the more you'll be able to celebrate everyone else's life. I had a friend of mine who completed the entire Talmud, Shas. He was a dear friend of mine. And he said to me something astonishing. He said almost every person, every one of his friends that he told that he finished the Talmud, almost every one of them he could feel that when they complimented him on the accomplishment, it was half-hearted because they were disappointed that it was him and not them. Do you hear that? His good friends could not celebrate what he achieved because they were jealous. They wanted it. You don't want his shas. That's his job. That's his life. Dance with him. Hug him, kiss him, celebrate with him. You want him to be his greatest. And now you go and be your greatest. Why are you letting that poison your life? Live your life and celebrate his life for being his life. We need a teva where we lock ourselves in, and not just where we lock ourselves in, but where we appreciate who we are. When Noach was in that teva, do you know what he knew? That he was the future of the world. Now, booyah, can you imagine feeling that? How would you feel in the morning? Would you look over at the next person if you knew you are the future of the human race? Hashem chose you. You're the one Hashem chose. Well, guess what? What we need to hit home when we wake up in the morning is we need to build our ark, our teva, and say, I'm in my own world. I don't see anything else. And you know what? Hashem chose me to accomplish everything I'm to accomplish. There ain't nobody else. I'm the Noach. That's got to feel amazing. The Mesilas Yesharim starts. In his first chapter, he titles it. And he says the root of being a great Jew comes from Ma chayvasai bi'olamai. What's my purpose? Knowing. What is your purpose? Bi'olamai. What does bi'olamai mean? Not in the world. Many commentators point this out on the Mesilas Yesharim. Bi'olamai means in his world, that when a person knows what is my purpose in my world. What do you mean my world? Yes, I have my own world. And until I wrap my brain around that, I'm going to be poisoned by the mabul. I'm going to be swept away by the mabul. But when I say, no, I have my own world. Hashem created my life, my circumstances, my details for me to accomplish something great, nobody else. I am the future of all mankind for this accomplishment. There ain't nobody else. I'm Noach in the teva. It's me or bust. I'm in my own world. Hashem is looking towards me, counting on me, showering me with the possibility to achieve it and the blessings. As long as I don't get washed away, stay in the teva. What's my purpose in my world? To know that Hashem put all that confidence in me to be me. I think we're all sick and tired of Corona. I think we are all sick and tired of Corona. However, I do think that within Corona, within the fact that we're somewhat separated, there is a little bit of an opportunity to try and redirect our vision right here. To feel a little bit the opportunity to create the space where we care about us and not how everyone else looks at shul, and not what everyone else is driving, and not what everyone else is learning or studying, but what am I meant to do to be the future of mankind? This is what it's about. I want to tell you an amazing article I saw. An amazing article I saw. I don't know where this was printed. My uncle posted this. It's written by a Michelle and Yaakov Steinhardt. And the title of the article is In the Right Place at the Right Time. And the point is that there's a couple in this article, and they're the ones writing, okay? And they have a child, and the child is Down syndrome. And they're trying to figure out how to process that information, especially as they have two sons that are coming back from Israel, that are in Israel, and I'm going to call them and ask them about the new baby. And they're going to break the news that the baby is Down syndrome. And they weren't sure how to do that, how to help their children digest it. So they decide they're going to reach out to a Rabbi that their children were close to. And this Rabbi is a Reb Michal Zilber in Eretz Yisrael, who was somebody who was well known for the classes he gave. And Reb Michal Zilber says to the parents, I'm so glad you called me, because did you know that I also have a son that's Down syndrome? And they said, no, we had no idea. So he said, well, before we talk about how to get this information and help your children process it, he said, can I ask you, do you guys know how to process this yet? They said, no, actually, we're kind of overwhelmed by it. He said, I'd like to help you with sharing my attitude and experience. And I want to read to you. I want to read to you unbelievable words here from Reb Zilber. In this article, I'm going to read them to you. A man who's a Torah scholar, who's giving classes, how does he compute having a son like this? And listen to what he said. Reb Zilber continued, let me tell you how I see it. Many times when I'm preparing my shiur, the payphone outside the study hall will ring. It's my wife calling to tell me that our son needs help with toileting or bathing. He's a grown man, and I'm the only one who can pick him up and clean him. Can you imagine this? Talk about a temptation to look out at other people's lives. You find yourself in a situation like that. How much does that cause you to want to look out at everybody else, their situation, their children, their family, or their ability to accomplish and to prepare shiur without any interruptions? How much does that make you want the other person's life? Listen to what he says. I close my Gemara and walk home. I get my son cleaned up and dressed in fresh clothing, and then I head back to the Beis Medrash. The whole process takes anywhere from half an hour to an hour. But do you know how I feel as I'm walking back? I feel the same way I do at Ne'ilah on Yom Kippur. The final moments, the climax of Yom Kippur. And the father responds, Yom Kippur? Why do you feel like Yom Kippur? You should feel like Tisha B'Av. And this is what he answers back. Yes, Reb Zilber answered. I feel like Yom Kippur, because there are many times in life when we are not sure what our mission is or where we should focus our energies. There is one time, though, when I know without a doubt that I'm doing exactly what Hashem wants at that moment. When I'm taking care of my son, I know there's nobody else who can do it the same way I can. It's my job, and it's where I need to be. And Rev Zilber concluded, on Yom Kippur, at Ne'ilah, nobody is wondering whether they're supposed to be somewhere else or doing something else. When you're standing there in Ne'ilah and Yom Kippur, you know this is where I belong. This is where it's all happening. This is the moment. He says everyone's purpose is so clear at that time on Yom Kippur. He says, I get to feel that every day. Every day as he's cleaning off his handicapped child, he feels like he's standing at the highlight of Yom Kippur. Why? Reb Zilber didn't invent it, but he had Einei Hashem. He had the eyes that Hashem wanted you to have. He said, I don't care if nobody else has that child. I don't care what the other person has. This child is Hashem telling me, I want you here and I want you doing this. And Reb Zilber said, that's my Ne'ilah. That's my Yom Kippur. That's my highlight. That's the moment. I know where I belong. I know where to be. I know how I will continue the future of mankind. I'm not confused at that moment. I'm not swept away in the marble. I'm in my teva. I'm in my zone. I'm exactly where Hashem wants me. I'm ish, tzaddik, tomim hoya b'dayresav. I'm noach letzaddik, in the right time and in the right place, doing my calling, irregardless of what anybody else on earth is doing. What a powerful, powerful quote. Powerful story, powerful perspective. The marble threatens to sweep us away. But you and I, my friends, today, we're going to take the first step, which is we're going to realize there is a marble going on. There is a flood. But we don't have to get swept away with it. Most of the world doesn't even compute this. Most of the world is just being washed downstream in a deluge of competition, comparison, thirst, hunger, wants, and appetites. But you and I today, we become sane. Today, we're going to wake up and we're going to say, no, there is a marble. It's trying to sweep us away. It's the vayiru, the looking at everybody else. And we're going to, God willing, begin today to hear what the Nesiv Shalom is screaming to us. Our lives depend on this. To be the Noach, to build our teva, to build our bubble, to keep our eyes on us, to realize there is blessing pouring in. There is purpose that is ours and ours alone. And we can live that. We could celebrate that. We could be like Reb Zilber and say, Hashem, where do you want me and when? And that's my Ne'ilah. That's my shining moment. That's incredible. I can dance to go do that, which is my calling, my life. My blessings that you've given me, physically and spiritually. Noach. The word Noach means tranquil. This is the secret to tranquility. To stop chasing. To sit back and relax. And say, Hashem, what are you giving me? And what are you asking me to do with it? And when we embrace that, when we embrace our role, our accomplishment, then we're able to have the tranquility and the joy of rising to the calling that is ours and ours alone. So let's build our teva. Let's create the eyes that look inward. Let's celebrate the accomplishment. Let's recognize that Hashem has chosen us and us alone, the same way he chose Noach. It's ours, our purpose, ours alone. We're the only one who could do it. And when we have that view, then we have the view of joy, like Adam and Chava in Gan Eden, the joy that comes from stop looking at everybody else, celebrate our life, rejoice in our connection with Hashem, join up with everybody. We could truly enjoy and join in their celebration of their purpose because we know that it doesn't infringe on ours. They have theirs, we have ours. Together we can be the future, but only if we all rise to be the Noach, the person that we're meant to be. God willing, Hashem should help us, that with the raging flood that's around us, which is so fierce, that we should be strong enough and have enough joy to be able to create the tranquil environment, the menucha, the Shabbos, the teva, the ark that keeps us focused inward where it matters, so that we may truly celebrate in all the gifts that Hashem has granted us and rise to accomplish all of the greatness which is uniquely ours to accomplish. Thank you all so much. Okay.